Of all the attempts around the country to coddle the snowflakes among us who can't handle the reality that our shared history is equal parts noble and brutal, the discomfort bill in the Florida state legislature is the most idiotic. The official name of the legislation, part of the bonkers Stop Woke agenda of Governor DeSantis, is individual freedom. One of its provisions directs that classroom instruction not make any student feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other form of psychological distress on account of his or her race. That protection from discomfort, of course, is a one-way street accessible only to white students. What about the discomfort black students feel learning history that's sanitized or just plain incorrect? Now, I'm going back some decades, but I'll never forget the discomfort of being one of the few black kids in a predominantly white school, especially during history class when slavery, the Civil War, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., or the Civil Rights Movement would come up. One teacher often had students read sections of the textbook aloud in class. No one ever saw my growing alarm as I realized that the startlingly brief section on slavery would be intoned by me. I could feel the eyes on me as I read aloud paragraphs that barely scratched the surface of the inhumanity visited upon my ancestors. Anyway, back to that Florida bill. While it says educators may facilitate discussions and use curricula to teach about things such as slavery, racial oppression, and racial discrimination, the flawed measure includes a big old but. It says that classroom instruction and curriculum may not be used to indoctrinate or persuade students to a particular point of view. Indoctrinate or persuade is a giant loophole that could lead to banning anything that twinges the fragile sensibilities of those who can't handle confronting the truth. Just how vacant this bill and movement are was illustrated by Tina Descovich, a leader of the conservative group Moms for Liberty. To say there were slaves is one thing, but to talk in detail about how slaves were treated and with photos is another. What in the white fragility? Florida is part of a national freakout over teaching the truth of our history. During a radio interview, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin announced that there's even a tip line for parents to report school officials who they believe are teaching divisive subjects. John Legend had the perfect response to Youngkin's nonsense. Black parents need to flood these tip lines with complaints about our history being silenced, he tweeted. We are parents too. And that's who gets lost in all this, black parents and their children. We'll never understand this country as long as book banning, tip lines, and legislation to bubble wrap the tender white souls among us continue to flourish.